we are there. So, welcome, guys. Could you, excuse me, first tell us a little about who y'all are, what y'all are doing, what y'all are trying to do, and why people should support you, and we'll go from there.
So, Dylan, you want to go first?
So we're SeerNova Comics. My name is Dylan, and I'm editor-in-chief, co-founder, and the CTO. I handle the web development and things of that nature, making sure that the site's working, which we're doing a terrible job at the moment. So that's what I'm kind of working on. Greg, introduce yourself.
And I'm Greg, like he just said, and I am the one that created the company in the beginning from Seer Chronicles, which is on Kickstarter right now. And then I found him on Craigslist, and from there we sparked a loving relationship.
So, how long have y'all been doing this?
Since 2017.
Okay, and you said this is your second release of a comic, or is this your second Kickstarter, or?
Yeah.
Well, it's like our
It's
second
third
successful Kickstarter.
comic. Yeah, it's our third comic and second Kickstarter. So we released the first issue of like our flagship comics, which is the Seer Chronicles, which is
Okay.
like the main overarching story of the universe that Greg's created, and essentially like that's the one that will be continuing through most of all of our comic book development. But we've also released another comic called Ink, which is a solo series that will eventually blend into that same world.
Okay.
And our current Kickstarter is the release of our second issue of the Seer Chronicles.
And so, how you said you started it and you found each other on Craigslist, but when you started it out, excuse me, did you have like a plan, a guide, a way to get there, or was it kind of just I want to do this and I'm just jumping in? Was there more structure than that, or was it kind of like I want to do this?
I literally got bored one day. I was like, I wrote this like on our blog and like everywhere, like a bunch of like Medium, and I got bored like one night, and it was like 11 p.m. I remember the night just because it was cool, like aha type of moment, and I got bored and I was watching, like Everybody Loves Raymond reruns on TV Land,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, I've seen this episode like a million times. It's a rerun. And then I picked up my laptop while I was sitting in my room, and then I just like opened my documents folder, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I see all this like these song lyrics that I wrote. I actually used to like writing. Why haven't I been like writing? Because I like stopped writing for a while, and I was just trying to get a job. And I just started. I opened like a Word document, and I just started typing, and then I typed like firefighter runs into building, saves janitor. That's it. So I wrote.
All right.
Just like blossomed into like me not sleeping for like 3 weeks because.
Oh. Well, that's why, guys. We found out why he cannot sleep. So, yes.
Yeah. Oh, he's coming.
Oh, he's coming back.
Yeah, I'm so confused. Discord didn't want me to say my story.
Well, it's because you weren't sleeping.
Spoiler alert! You gotta hit your camera again to turn it back down.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay. Yeah. So.
And that's when click.
Wow.
Yeah.
So.
I was just gonna say, yeah, he was talking about he was writing his story and couldn't sleep for 3 days because he started thinking.
It's like 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah. I fully understand that. I kind of get the same way when I start to write things or get invested in creation. I kind of just get lost and I can go days without really realizing I've been up and kind of invested in this. So when y'all, you started going out and you started to write the story, did you start to formulate other things as well, like a business strategy or a way to attack this, or did you just kind of go with it at a plan or with no plan and then kind of found each other on, you said Craigslist?
Yeah. I was having my brother's friend, he went to school for literature and stuff, but he didn't end up becoming a teacher or anything. But he like learned Shakespeare and all that
Yeah.
stuff, and he was like, "Wow, your comic, like," because it wasn't a comic, it was originally a story that I was gonna do, like just a novel, and I turned it into a comic because like I was like, "Oh wow, this could be like a comic book,"
Mm-hmm.
and like I, I was writing it in 2013, 2014, and it took like a year or two to like finish writing because it's like Seer Chronicles is a trilogy.
Yeah.
And it was like over 1,200 pages
Whew.
that I wrote.
All right. I mean, so you sat down, you kind of busted it out, and then just kind of got the premise, and then you went from there. I mean, you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
He ended up putting up a Craigslist post that actually read graphic designer needed because he didn't know that like that's not what you call a comic book writer. And I had just started my digital marketing company, and I was looking for like clients and gigs. So I'm looking up words like graphic designer. So I happened to stumble across this post. I open it up, and it's like, oh, I'm creating a comic book company, and I need graphic designers. And I'm like, well,
that's not what you need.
I can't draw people or comics, but I can do logos if you need that. And that's kind of how we connected. And yeah, it was funny because I think when I first met Greg, he had like no business acumen. Like there was nothing.
Yeah.
There was no game plan. It was like I'm just gonna make comics and do that because that's how it happens.
Because that's how it works. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of a two-part bridge. Like in one sense, it is good to have that, you know, that I won't say blind ambition because it almost sounds bad, but that blind ambition without really a plan and the passion. But if you don't have a team or a support system to help you get to that next level, I think that's where it starts to become really difficult. So you know what ultimately led to both of y'all, you know, breaking it down and saying this is what we want to focus on. This is, you know, this is good enough to pursue. This, we are good enough. What we can produce is good enough. Like, when was that? Was there a pivotal moment? Did this just kind of happen, or did y'all immediately when y'all got together say, yeah, this is where we're going?
I think honestly, if I remember correctly, I believe we kind of just started looking over stuff. He started telling me his story like he normally does, and just kind of ranted off and started sharing the whole 1,200 page thing. And I'm following along, and I'm like, this could actually be something. And basically, when we first started, we actually even had a third partner, and just because it was kind of like, oh, we might just throw this together. And so basically at that time I was actually working as an engineer trying to start a marketing company on the side. So I basically actually told Greg, I'm like, this is going to be like a little fun side project for me. Like I'll just be a small part of it. I'll help you out here and there. And then he was like, oh, I want to make it legitimate. And I'm like, well, because, you know, when it comes to something like comic books, you could accidentally, you know, create something that's copywritten. I'm like, I don't want to accidentally be involved with something that can happen with. So let's do this officially. Let's get an LLC.
Yeah.
I'll fund it. I'll start everything. I'll make sure that the business is legit. I've been doing web development for about a decade. Up to that point, I'm like, I'm just gonna build the website, and then I'm just gonna walk away. I'm not gonna do anything anymore. I'm gonna get it all set up, and then basically.
Then he got you to stay again.
That's kind of like how it got started, and then I got sucked into it.
So tell us a little bit about, you know, about the Chronicles and what exact, you know, don't tell us the whole 1,200 page story, but at the same time, you know, what can people expect if they're wanting to check y'all out and see what you know, what they're supporting, and what can they expect to find? General synopsis. Now, we don't have 3 hours now. I mean, we do. We can talk about this later, but
well, it starts with like a firefighter, and he's just trying to do his job, and it ends up with him, you know, dying and coming back with new like abilities, like gifted abilities. I don't know if like DC or somebody owns the word superpower, but yeah, I never really mentioned that in the story yet, but yeah, so that happens, but like he's not the only like superhero type person. There's more vigilantes and kind of stuff that fall into the story later, and but it's all based around this like conspiracy, because where the fire happens is this like research lab that's really sketchy. And there's like a group of people that you meet in the first issue, that people, like the reader is gonna find out like, well, why is this so sketchy?
Yeah.
And it branches off from there, and then there's like multiple other characters that we follow. Like in the second issue, you follow this like alcoholic detective that just
As
is not
gambling
the
problem.
best at his he's not the best at his job or life, but he's like very interesting to follow because he originally was going to be like, was not really a spoiler because we changed it, but he originally was going to be like killed off like quick.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And we changed that because he became very like such like a pivotal character.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting to see, like, when you, because I've done a little bit of writing. I'm terrible at writing and reading. I'm dyslexic, so like words just don't do well for me. But I love creating and I love writing stories, and it's interesting to see, like, when you first start out with a character that, you know, you're like, I don't really like this character, and as it goes on, you're like, you know, I can kind of see where this, you know, in 5 or 6 episodes might shift and his character might become really lovable. So do y'all have any, you know, specific inspirations or things, you know, not styles that you want to copy by any means, but everything in and of a sense is a form of copying another thing, you know. So inspiration to a degree that you know, that y'all kind of like to follow that format or that feel or that visual feel, or is it just something that y'all are trying to make completely unique to yourself? And I know that's a very weighted question because of course you're trying to do that, but
So like I would say probably the best way to answer that is when Greg first started writing it, because after Greg told me a lot of the story, like the main plot is very unique, but almost all of these side plots were almost completely stolen from a lot of other things. So we ended up, the reason why our story is changing so much now is because while going through it, I essentially realized that I'm like, oh,
mm-hmm.
yeah, we can't do that. That's like almost exactly like this.
Yeah,
So we're gonna change that a little bit. And basically, we changed so many little things in the beginning that other than the main plot, almost all of these side stories have completely changed
gotcha.
from their original purpose, which has been really awesome because it kind of like gets me into writing the comic with
Yeah,
them as opposed to just editing. So it's been very fun. Like basically, one of the things that we did was in order to create a completely unique like universe, we
mm-hmm.
literally created a completely unique universe. We have a completely designed like world map like with
Nice. Yeah.
different continents that like Greg kind of like threw together and like made them different shapes. And then some of the things we did was like for connecting it to our like stories that we can do is that the main city, Seer City, is based on Greg's home city of
Okay.
Schenectady, New York.
Okay.
But we're taking the grid, like the street layouts, and swapping all the buildings with like skyscrapers and businesses and corporations, and making it this like new city with just the structural layouts
Yeah.
essentially of an old city.
Gotcha.
And by doing that, we've kind of like just developed all these like tangential building blocks from this originally like it wasn't going to be a whole world in itself. It just started off as
Yeah.
a city, and now it's like a
Well,
completely developed
you
world.
know, when you start it off, you get these ideas, you create these things, but then you realize like, oh, I need this shopkeeper. What is this shopkeeper going to be like if they, you know, if we want to take the story here, or you know, what is the person on the 3rd floor doing right now that can interact with this, you know, and so. I think having another person is extremely valuable, if only to be able to bounce off ideas and get another opinion on your writing to see if it is, you know, one, too much alike something else, and two, you know, to get those different avenues of thinking. So as far as the writing and layout of the story, does it follow specifically one character, or is it like a lot of other shows where they do break up and maybe even timeline wise, but follow other characters and other storylines, sub stories within the story, or is it does it more follow a single path?
If main character is John Benson,
Okay.
and he is followed for like most of it, but like the second issue, he's not in it as much as like the other character.
It's
So
like the series of comics follows John, but like
yeah,
throughout the series, like we're gonna branch off and like develop these other
Mm-hmm.
characters, kind of like one of the things we did was like we wrote bios to characters that have like 5-minute roles.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, because when you think about it, and especially if y'all do eventually have plans to say get an animation or a video game, I know we discussed a little bit, but when you get to that point where you need voice actors, they need emotional derivatives. They need emotional reasoning and why these characters are who they are. So having that backstory, and even then, you have more content for your audience to consume. So who is that little shopkeeper? What are they? What kind of dog do they have? If they want to know it, it's there for them to have, and then it's there for y'all to pull from to know where y'all need to go next, or can go next, I suppose. So what is the future moving on as far as of course there's going to be an episode 3, but what is that? Y'all have a kind of a plan, a timeline of what the next steps are, where to get there, how to get there, or just still kind of just Hail Mary?
Yeah, last year I promised that the first issue of the Seer Chronicles was going to be out this month, and then like a month went by, like, oh well, it's going to be out this month, and I kept doing that, and I was like, well, I hate doing that because I hate breaking promises.
Yep.
But I did make a timeline while I was at work a couple weeks ago, and it's like for next year, and we might not have issue 3 out next year. Depends on like money and all this other stuff. But I was trying to do it every year, but it also depends on the schedule of our artist, and he's super busy. So like I don't want to like be like, oh, you're gonna have to do this now.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and I would say it also depends on our other solo series. So we actually the Kickstarter we're running for our current comic, we've actually surpassed the goals. So we now
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So we've now beaten that, and we've now announced our stretch goal, which is a new solo series that we've actually been working on in the background that we're now officially announcing.
Very nice.
The solo series called Scales.
Scales. Could you give us a little bit about that, or do you want to kind of keep that under wraps right now? I understand both ways.
Yeah, Greg, you can
you can share how much you want to and what you're comfortable.
like, so there's this like family. They go on vacation. They go on vacation with a Chevy Chase. Go like overseas because they're a super rich family, and they stay in like some villa, and then things happen on this vacation where like little things fall into place, and the main character Eric, his like destiny is like created on this vacation.
Okay.
Can't really say anymore.
Yeah, no, hey.
Because it's not that long of a story, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's, it's good that y'all have those types of things set up, when you do, especially with your stretch goals. I think y'all ran this campaign beautifully. I've been trying to help push it when y'all have been doing it, but I've been interested in Kickstarters and crowdfunding for a while. And I know there's a lot of people out there that look at crowdfunding and those types of platforms as difficult to set up a platform, because it is. I mean, it's difficult to, especially on certain platforms like Facebook and things. It's difficult to get that reach. It's difficult to get that funding because people sometimes just don't see it. So, do y'all have any, for anyone that might be trying to think about that? Do you have any guidelines or input that you can give to help people become successful in their Kickstarters or platforms?
Yeah. So there's actually a book I read a few years back called The $100 Startup. And in that book, there was a guideline called the 39 Steps to Launch. And it talks about how to properly launch a product or a service. And it's over, I think it has like a 2-month essentially period in which you start announcing it, you plan the launch, you basically build up suspension all the way up until the moment it's launched, how to handle the event during the launch, as well as how to close out the launch and then even begin the next one.
Very nice.
And essentially, the first few crowdfunders that crowdfunding fundraisers, whatever that we ran, weren't that successful. And essentially, when we ran our first Kickstarter following this procedure, our goal was to raise $1,200 for the first issue, right? That was for issue 1, and we ended up raising $2,100, almost double what we wanted. And at the end of that, I had Greg write a blog based off of those 39 steps.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be, I believe, the 29 steps for launching a Kickstarter.
Okay.
And so basically the idea was that of those 39 steps for like a project or service launch, 21 of them were applicable if you altered them a little bit to running a Kickstarter campaign.
Gotcha. And what was that book again called?
The $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau.
Okay. All right. I'll actually check into that because that seems, there is an art to that. There is an art to building up the suspense, building up the anticipation, and a lot of times that doesn't work out. A lot of people and a lot of companies might start Kickstarters and do terrible marketing, which is not a terrible thing. Like, it's not, failure's not bad. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. And in those little that art form in itself, marketing, it takes time to learn. And so it's awesome that y'all have been able to fail, and that's some people view it as insulting, right? But at the same time, you learn, you grow, you realize what works, what doesn't work, and hopefully you get re-inspired and reinvigorated to keep going. I had a question leading into that, but I completely forgot it. So we talked a little bit about your future plans and the possibility of making a game and other types of media. But do you have any is the Chronicles and the standalone, are those like the main focus, or you're trying to go to do other types of comics as well, like eventually? I know that y'all are a small team right now, but if y'all started to get people, or for instance, if Indieception could start to network artists that could work for y'all very cheap or free, is there any plan to kind of expand past that once y'all start to get established?
Yeah, there's people that came to me on Facebook like in the beginning of this year and like last year even, and they're like, "How do I like work for you?" I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "For like nobody."
Yeah.
And the one guy's like, "I'll do like whatever," and I was like, "I can't pay you," and he's like, "Yeah, that's fine."
Yeah.
I was like,
well,
okay, well we'll get back and talking with you, but like he said, I'm like, "Oh, could you do like video editing?" And he's like, "I could learn." And
yeah.
I'm like, that's cool that you want to learn for that, but
so it's it's interesting because like Indieception, what I plan it to be is kind of a networking hub. People need people, and there's millions of people out there that are willing to work for free or very cheap to get their experience, get the name out there, and to get a chance. But what I found is people don't necessarily have a problem working and learning as long as they feel involved, feel connected, and see the vision and goal, And I think it can be really useful as long as there's guidance and structure and people are diligent in learning and growing. That's where it has to be. You have to be careful with deciding, hey, yeah, come work and join us, and then they don't do anything, and you're like, okay, or they take stuff and intellectual property, and so there's that constant battle there. But I definitely think that y'all structure and how y'all have attacked it has been very good. I forgot exactly when I started following you guys, but I think I was definitely not part of it, but supported the Kickstarter last year, and I've been broke, so I can't actually support, but the shares. So a question here, as far as the Kickstarters and crowdsourcing, and even getting the name out there, how important, in y'all's opinion, is social media for one, but interactions on social media. So friends, loved ones, supporters sharing and liking, reacting, commenting. I know the importance of that, but in y'all's opinions, what is that importance, or what could y'all say to people that might help them realize, hey, that share is helping us get to that goal,
So one thing I would actually say is that I wouldn't count on just like friends and family sharing your content. The idea should be more that you create a fan base that's so passionate about it, you don't have to ask them, but the ask is just to ensure that they don't forget. Like, just like even married couples forget anniversaries, if that can happen, then obviously your fan can forget you have a launch.
Absolutely.
So the idea is for constant communication. There's a particular entrepreneur I follow, Gary Vaynerchuk,
mm-hmm.
And one of the big things he talks about is scaling the unscalable and essentially being a human to all of the people that you're
Yeah.
connected with, and not trying to simply outsource that so that there's no authenticity with your fans.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I would say is that there's the concept of the 1,000 true fans,
Mm-hmm.
and that should be every comic creator's ultimate goal, is to get 1,000 people that care so much about your stuff that whatever you release, no matter what it is, they will buy it. Because if you can get 1,000 true fans that will buy whatever you sell whenever you release it, that will be enough for you to have a living off of your work. Now, you might not be rich, you might not be
Yeah.
massively successful, but you will be able to survive, you'll be able to pay for food, shelter, water, etc., and do what you love if you can achieve that goal. And basically, the way that you do that is by being very giving to your fans,
Yeah.
giving as much as you possibly can up until the moment you go broke. Right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want to be pushing it as hard as you can. And the other thing I would say too is that you need to be getting better along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that social media is super important, but if you're just releasing the same stuff over and over again and you're just trying to get people to share it, like that's not going to build any bond with your
Yeah.
fans. But if they see you grow over time, if they see you expand over time, they want to be a part of that journey. And that's one of the big things that we're working on, is aside from just getting better, we're actually remastering our first
Oh,
comic
nice.
as part of the Kickstarter. So
Gotcha.
we're getting better as we grow. But the other thing we're doing is we're making sure to add Easter eggs and these little hidden things throughout the whole story, so that the people who truly follow every step that we take
We'll see
will
it.
get
Yeah.
that pleasant surprise when they get to know something nobody else knows.
Yeah.
And that's how you build that like 1,000 true fans, the people that are willing to share everything you do, buy everything you make, and be everywhere that you are.
You know, you mentioned Gary Vee, and I love Gary Vee. I started listening to him a couple of years ago, and drastically changed my life. With that said, you know, it does come across as I might idolize him, but realistically, I want to see him as an equal, and I want to get to that point. And I think that he's provided the avenue in saying, hey, this is how you grow your social media platforms. You should utilize it. Like, here it is. I think authenticity is massively huge. I think people want to know who they're supporting, and and you build that community, like you said. You want to show people the value that you can bring and what your products can bring, and give them that value. Um,
I was actually going to say on that note, like one of the things that Gary specifically talks about, because a lot of people like they feel like, oh, like I don't have anything to share yet. That's why he talks about the concept of document over create. The idea is that your real fans should know almost
yeah,
everything you're doing, unless obviously like maybe you don't want to spoil a story, but it doesn't mean like our latest comic, most of the meaning the scales, the one that we recently announced, most of the roughs of that we've actually released, but it hasn't spoiled anything because it's still a little obscure. But we're showing everything back to like the rough drawings that may completely change
mm-hmm,
before we release that comic. And so because of that, they get to see that the whole way. I
yeah,
remember, I think it was it Travis Gibbs, the one who talked about he had made a black and white comic and
Yeah.
he doesn't make it anymore, but fans loved it so much he reprinted it and sold it for more
wow,
because people wanted it, right?
yeah,
Because it was like an original, like it's
mm-hmm,
this limited thing. So like, and he's just an indie creator,
yeah,
right? Or he's just an indie creator.
yeah.
The whole point is if you are sharing your path the whole way through, even the mistakes end up becoming valuable. Like
Exactly, because your
it's
audience can see it, your audience can grow from it. You know, I feel the same way. I constantly kind of battle with quality over quantity, because I truly like to have things. I know the production quality that I can be at, but I'm not there yet. You know, I built this entire building and I've kind of documented it the entire way, and I fight myself with doing these podcasts because it's not where I want them to be yet. It's not, quality wise, but when people come back and look, or even in 5 years when I come back and look and say, even if nothing happens, hey, this was fucking awesome. It's here, and it gives your audience something to look at and say, hey, these guys are doing it. They are putting in the work. I should support them. I should give them that support. Um, so, oh, go
I was
ahead.
going to say actually too on that. This little book right here, it's called The Dip by Seth Godin.
Okay.
And the subtitle is a little book that teaches you when to quit and when to stick. And the concept essentially is, no matter what you do in life, if it's worth doing, eventually you'll hit a dip, like this rut that's really hard to get past. And the idea is that once you hit that, it's whether or not you enjoy it so much you're willing to go through it,
Mm.
or if it's not worth it and you should quit and move on to the next thing. And anyone who's willing to get past that dip are that top 5% of whatever
Mm-hmm.
industry you're in. And that's the whole point, is like things like this, like it could be uncomfortable releasing an unpolished podcast. But the point is, if you break that 100 barrier, like you've released 100 episodes,
Yeah.
that's something almost no one does. That's one of the 5% that actually make it past that point. And at that point, you've like, even if the production isn't where you want it to be, you've already done so much more than everyone else that it almost doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like Joe Rogan's podcast, #1 podcast in the world, started off as a couple of stoners on a couch, and
Yeah.
now he's getting $100 million deals to talk with friends.
Yeah, you're right. Um, so, as far as the creative process, the creative writing process, is it just you sitting down and just writing what's in your head, or you kind of just could you walk us through your creative process a little bit? And I know that's a very vague question and kind of hard to exactly iron down. Tell us exactly how you do what you do. But kind of to people that don't write, to people that don't create worlds in their head, what does that feel like? What does that look like to you when you go down to start writing or start brainstorming both of y'all together?
I can make a story up out of anything. Basically, I can drive by some lady yelling at some third person, like at a grocery store or something, and I could somehow create her to be like some crazy lady that's somehow involved in my story.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, world building is like monster of a thing to do, and I just really like doing it. Um, it goes from like I just write notes in my phone to even at work, even though my boss doesn't know, whatever. I'm on like Google Docs, and I'm like taking the notes that I wrote in my phone, and any notes while I'm walking around at work, because like I'm a security guard, so
Yeah.
I'm either watching cameras or I'm writing. And when I'm walking around, I get ideas sometimes, like, oh, I could put this in,
Mm-hmm.
and then like if like it doesn't make it past Dylan's edit, then
Yeah.
whatever.
So
Yeah,
you use that text yourself when you get an idea, that technique, because I do the same thing. It's I'll be walking or laying down. I'm like, oh shit, I don't want to forget this, and then send a little text and
yeah.
how about yourself as far as helping direct and guide, and I guess it would be directing at that point. I'm terrible with terminology in English.
I was kind of mentioning that to someone else today, because I was talking about like how I do things, and it's like it's like the editor in chief, because I am going through and editing it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
almost more like a director in the sense that I'm like, okay, I see what you're trying to do. This is how we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, I'm a big like bird's eye view kind of guy for even my marketing business. So
Yeah.
like when I work with a client, I've now evolved it all the way to consulting, because I see the big picture so much more. And so Greg's really good at coming up with the random idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically, it's like I don't come up with random ideas, even when it comes to like logos, anything. So I do logo designs for clients. I have to get something from
Yeah.
them first, or I can't do anything. But even the logo for our comic book company, for example, our original third partner, he actually just threw together something that looked nonsensical, and I turned it into
Yeah.
what now our logo, which is like I've been told many times, like really well done. And so I'm very good at taking an idea and making it highly presentable, and
Mm-hmm.
like that's kind of where I come in. Greg has this big plot point, and I'm like, I got that, but why are they all at this place at this time? Like, let's come up with this, right? And then
Yeah.
it's like, oh no, this guy's in danger. Why is he in this position? Like,
Mm-hmm.
does he have family members, right? Like, why would he put himself like this? And so, like, I think about all these critical things because
Yeah.
of the bird's eye.
Yeah.
So like Greg's right through the middle, and I'm like, let's look at the details to make the big picture make sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's so massive and important, especially for storytelling, because, if it doesn't flow, if it doesn't make sense, I'm one of the people that, will watch movies or read stuff and kind of like, how does that work? Like, that's, come on, guys, that's not going to work. And even if it's in a fantasy world, there's still parameters that go there. And it's like, why is Susie down here doing that? Doesn't make any sense. She shouldn't be here. So I respect that, that directorial view, but also respect the creative and just writing and just going, there's a fire tornado now because welcome to 2020, so yeah, I see validity in both sides of the creative process and the directorial process, I suppose, because there's a lot of people out there that might be thinking about getting into this or writing or creating in general. They don't usually realize how important that constructive criticism or direction can be. You look at shows like, and this is a hot topic right now, but Rick and Morty, and where Morty was initially, and who his character was meant to be, and how much that changed based off of the input from I forgot his name, but the producer and that direction. So it's like you can see how, as long as it's good input, good voicing, and good direction, how valuable that can be, because it can take a small amount of people that like this character to the majority liking this character or this scene or the situation. As far as the networking aspect, as far as branching out and say, I don't know how much of a push y'all have done with other. I know y'all have y'all's own podcasts and y'all's own series in that regard, but reaching out to other people and networking with other news outlets. I don't want to say news outlets, but other ways to market yourself. Are y'all doing anything in that regard as well?
Not really yet. I did talk to Soda and it's like Soda and Telepaths or something like that. I think that's what his podcast is called. And he has a blog too. And I was like, can you do like a blog for our video game that's like launching on Kickstarter in like October? And he's like, yeah, like what do you really want? Like, I want you to write a blog about all of this. And I sent him like pictures, like a bunch of pictures. And just I wrote basically what the video game is about in the most brief way I could without giving like the story away.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. And he's like, wow. Yeah, okay. I got it.
So you said you're doing a Kickstarter. Y'all are doing a Kickstarter in October for a video game?
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that? What does that entail? What kind of game?
So one of the things that even made that idea come to us was that when we were building the universe, we essentially we talked about how we wanted to not do the Marvel method of like, oh, there's multiverses, so we can always just destroy our plot line because it makes the story better for our fans. And so we decided to come up with like the city and make it based off of Schenectady, New York. So then we started off by literally just chopping out Google Maps and starting to draw on it. And we're like, this is going to get too confusing. So let's make it more confusing. What if we made it like a 3D world? Because a 3D world would be a little easier. And then in the 3D world, we could like take screenshots and send it to the artist and be like, this is the street they're running down, and these are the businesses on
Then you're like,
block.
wait, we've already built the street. Might as well just make it a game.
So yeah, we literally we were working with a game developer to build it, and I didn't know how he was building it. And Greg's like, oh yeah, he's building it in Unity. And I'm like, the game developer? So that's kind of how the game idea came about. And then based on the fact that we were already building up all these side characters to be way more than they originally were, and like writing up like, family trees of people that are in the, one panel, because we kept like doing that, we realized the way that this video game could be enjoyable so that it's not just an echoing of the comics is if it really is the universe tangential to the comic. Okay. So in the sense that like, the first comic is going to get, released, and the building that is Psycorp blows up in the video game.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And now there's firefighters and cops that are involved in what goes on,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the cops have to arrest somebody and figure out what's going on. So we're going to make the game part of that world, like the part that
Okay.
covers these side stories that
Yeah.
are almost seemingly irrelevant that end up becoming relevant for the game. And and one little thing, I don't actually know if we announced this anywhere, but one thing that we're going to be using the game itself for, along with the comics, is this like keeping this world real. In our comic, our second issue, we're going to have 2 pages in there that are actually a newspaper, and
Oh,
that newspaper is going to discuss what's been going on in the game.
very nice.
And
Very
so
nice.
in that world, there might be some serial killer going around that they don't know who it is. It
Yeah.
hasn't appeared in the comics. It's only appeared in the game. But there's going to be these news articles in the
Hmm.
beginning of the comic that discusses something going on.
So that
And
when, okay, I got you.
yeah, and our goal is to kind of wrap those
Yeah.
together. So like later down the line, maybe issue 5, 6, 7, suddenly this thing that's been going on in the background that only if you've been fully immersed in our
Mm-hmm.
world, literally in our game, 3D world, you can now pull that in and be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, that's the guy that's been going around. I've been chasing him, and here he is.
Yeah. And so you're continuing to provide that extra value to your audience. You're making them feel connected. You're showing them, how much information and how much content your universe has, because it's hard to display that all on comics. It's hard to see the depth that y'all truly have. Like you have the whole cityscape, you have the whole landscape laid out. And it's almost lost and to some degree with the comics because it'll never get there to be able to put all the content out and say, hey, this is everything. You know what I mean? So is it, as far as the game goes, is it a top down? Is it a turn based? What type of gameplay could you expect, or could we
So
expect?
yeah, so the actual game development uses almost the same technology as like Grand Theft Auto. So that kind of free roam world with missions that you'll be able to beat.
Gotcha.
So I don't want to go too much deeper
No,
than
yeah,
that.
hey, hey,
Basically, like that's kind of the route that we're looking at.
yeah.
And one, I just thought of one other thing that's kind of cool. Like I said before, one of the reasons we wanted this 3D world was so that we could map our like city in the comic to something real.
Yeah.
And so in issue 2, right in the beginning, you'll see there's a skyline, and it's in our video trailer. That skyline was actually drawn by our artist based on the 3D rendering of our actual
Oh wow.
skyline.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that skyline is real. Each of the
Yeah.
buildings you see in there aren't randomly drawn. Those are actual buildings in our city.
Very nice. Very, very nice. I had a question I was going to lead into. I apologize for my ADD, guys. It gets the best of me sometimes. um, it's completely lost me now. God, it was a good question too.
Almost like he's lost in our world.
I mean, well, I am. It's inspiring to me for sure. Because like about 7 years ago, I tried to start a video game studio, and uh, a lot of shit happened, and that failed. And then I started to make an animation studio, and I started writing an anime, and that fell through because of life, and then now I just kind of dove in and said I'm making an Inception so I can make both of those fucking things, and we're just gonna do it. So seeing people actually actively trying to do these things and stepping out and pursuing their dreams puts a fire in me like nothing else. You know what I mean? So I respect the hell out of you guys for pursuing it, and thank y'all for actually talking to me as well. So as far as so the second episode's done, correct? And is it ready to ship? Is it when you back it, is it going to be
So that one's still being finished. So the
okay?
story itself is done, but
Gotcha,
it's still being drawn up. Yeah.
gotcha. What's the expected delivery on that as far as if backers come and support now?
We estimated. I want to say estimated just because.
Absolutely.
Like November.
Okay.
Then I realized like, oh well, this dude's pretty busy. So what we are didn't announce this yet. What we are doing is we're shipping now that we're funded. We're gonna be shipping everything once the Kickstarter's over. Everything that the backers we promised, like
Mm-hmm.
the comics. Issue 2 and all the other awards will be out around November, December time.
Gotcha.
There's I didn't announce this anywhere. Something is coming in December, but I'm not telling you. And then next year, January, February, around that time, issue 1, like the remastered, will be mailed to everybody else.
Okay.
Just because he's got 3 other projects, and I don't want to rush him.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get it to people. We're not gonna wait like 3 years and then put our comic at Walmart or something.
But at the same time, shit happens sometimes. You know, stuff comes up and life comes up, and so that's completely understandable. Could you, as far as storyboarding and conceptual design of the comic, that's something that I'm very ignorant about. As far as laying it out and actually, getting to that point. So could you walk us through, some type of the creative process behind actually developing the scenes and developing which illustration is going to be used, which punch is going to be used in this scene as opposed to something else? How do y'all get to those decisions?
So Dylan created like basically certain panel layouts in Canva. It's this free like graphic design website and app. And then our artist is really great at storyboarding. So he like looks at them and he basically does what we like have mapped out. There's little things, but like we are fine with like what he's doing because it looks amazing, like what he's put out so far.
Yeah, and I would say definitely you got to trust your artist a little bit, because like if they are good artists, they should know what they're doing. But like one of the things that we did when we were like writing out the pages was that initially, and I don't know if other, I'm assuming there's artists that do this, but or not artists that do this, writers that do this. But one of the things that we had to be cognizant of, which we're actually working through the remastering of issue 1 right now for this exact reason, is the desire to turn the page, right? Because that's part of the storyboarding that some people might not think about. Like you might think a page like, oh, that's really cool, but what makes me want to turn the page? And so one thing we have to do with the writing is making sure that we kind of almost always leave on some sort of unfinished business on the bottom right of the right page.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so that's the when Greg was mentioning like we have like this panel structure, that's kind of how we've been doing it. And the way that we lay it out is we basically assume every page has 6 panels, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
And sometimes they overlap, so it's just one. Sometimes it's different sized, and essentially, depending on what we talk about in the story, we'll like write out what we think it should be, but we still give the artist, wiggle room to like change it if there's something that he sees that's better. Our current artist, he's not like a huge fan of overlapping panels, but for example, in our newest comic, that's something that he was looking at. And he's like, actually, I kind of did like this one, so he went with it.
Yeah.
And so it's good to have some ideas in your head and make sure that you can actually talk with your artists and understand how they think. But you want to also make sure they fully understand your story, because the first time we had our first comic written, our original artist, aside from was a translation barrier. There was a lot that he just didn't quite understand, so he might miss something out. And our initial comic was more like a storyboard, like a film, right?
Okay, yeah.
Is that like a film storyboard? You could have 6 actions in one block, but in a comic you can't. Like, you can't have somebody stand up and then get knocked down.
Yeah.
Right? They have to be distinct, or you can't see what's going on. And so basically Greg took his like novel essentially, turned it into a storyboard, and then we break it down going like, what would that visually look like? Does it make sense? Can I see that in 2 panels, or does it need to be 6, or could it be 1, right? And like how can we, like, we always try to simplify it as much as we can so we can get as much into a panel as we can, but we never oversimplify it by removing something that's
gotcha. Okay. And so, there's a kind of a common theme per se with comics and manga sometimes breaking the fourth wall. Do y'all like to explore that? Do y'all like to do that? Is there comedy elements in y'all's story, or is it more just a serious story?
Um, we, I originally had a character that was too much like Deadpool,
Okay.
and he's like, that's too much like Deadpool. Like the uniform is different,
Yeah.
but same
He
colors.
was dead.
He was Deadpool.
He was yeah. Um, is kind of a little origin that's a little like it in a way, but not. Well, his origin is definitely different, but
I
kind of
can
looks almost the
I can
same.
see the regret of having to admit that. It's like, he's kind of like Deadpool, but yeah, okay. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was pool dead. It was different.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I would say that that was something that I think Greg originally planned to have with that particular character
Yeah.
as well. I don't know if we actually ever figured out if we were going to keep that or not, like the fourth wall breaking. But I would say we definitely scatter comedy throughout, but it's
Hmm.
more dark comedy.
It's very
Um,
dark.
like there's something I won't spoil this because this is something that is very awesome to us and we want
Yeah.
to keep it secret. But there is something that will recur throughout the comics that will recur in a comedic fashion, but it is not funny. So I think there's one person aside from the two of us that actually know what it is, and it's
Yeah.
because we've based that character like off of him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's interesting. I can see that though. Dark humor is always good. It can be bad, but if done well, I think it's very very good.
Yeah.
So as far as uh, future stories, I mean, like I take it that the this project is definitely first and foremost what is important to your writing and what y'all are pursuing. Um, but are you wanting to also create other worlds, or is this one just is this what your is this your baby? You know what I mean? Is this the one that y'all are really putting
So,
everything into?
so if I had the money, I would put all of my comics out now. I'm pretty sure that's how everybody is.
Yeah.
Um, because I pay artists with my like own like
Hmm.
paychecks. So like right now, basically broke. Like
Yeah.
my girlfriend, it's her birthday, but like she paid for the Chipotle that came today. Um, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I don't have the money for
Yeah.
that. So
So we're
I
gonna start a
had like
GoFundMe.
I had like two or three other comics that aren't even in this. They're like in this universe. They're not in the same like story
Hmm.
because it branches off after the trilogy. There's like way down the line. We go into like space,
Nice.
and I did Fiverr with this one dude that like wanted just like a 10-page type of thing, and I was like, okay, it's easy. And he's like, it's really easy, and I was like, hey, you don't understand how easy that is for me. And like
Yeah.
I just made it super quick, but like
Yeah.
he liked it, and I'm like, can I use these stories for like the future? He's like, oh yeah. I was like, awesome.
Well, that's
And one of
awesome.
them is based off. Yeah, one of them is actually based off of my girlfriend's cat that she used to have. I'd never met the cat. The
Yeah.
cat was like a childhood cat, and he's like kind of like Rocky Raccoon, but it's a cat, and so he's a space pilot, and he talks not like obviously he probably meows sometimes, but he'll actually talk. And he's one of the characters, and I have like a Guardians of the Galaxy kind of like feel on that
Hmm.
story, as well as another story that is like a Star Lord type of
Yeah.
character, but obviously his name's not Star Lord, and
Yeah.
he's gonna be different.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I think, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but when it comes to stories, movies, music, there's only so much derivative that you can get. Like, there's only so much different type of content as long as it's unique to y'all, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah,
Um,
there's actually one other one too that there's a story I told Greg I was thinking of. I hope he actually still remembers it because I just remember that he really liked the idea. But it was like the only comic I actually did come up with that after
Horror.
Yeah, it's a horror comic, and
Okay.
after discussing it, we're like, it's definitely, it just can't fit in our current
Mm-hmm.
universe. So this will be one comic that actually is completely separate from this
Gotcha.
universe.
Okay.
So that will probably be a way future project,
Yeah.
something that. So I'm currently learning to draw, not because I want to draw our comics, but I enjoy
Yeah.
drawing. But that particular one, I'm going to hopefully get good enough that I can eventually attempt that one on the side, and I think that'll be a fun like side project to release under SeerNova Comics, which
Yeah.
I think would be cool.
Well, and that's that's a it's a good thing to be able to sorry about that, to be able to draw, because especially with that directorial mindset, understanding what that brushstroke does, understanding what that pen stroke does, and how to make what you want to see, it's so much easier to convey that to your artist, right? To be able to say, hey, no, try to use this right here, do that, instead of saying, well, I kind of want it to be a little thinner and wider, and it makes it so much easier to be able to communicate and have them comprehend what you're trying to say to begin
Yeah,
with.
I think that's one of the reasons why I've enjoyed working with our most recent artists is because I've done like logo design and graphic design for businesses, and yeah, it's one of those like just insider jokes about like, oh, this is what a client wants and this
Yeah.
is their budget, and like they have no idea, like they think that you're gonna completely recreate the Coca-Cola brand,
Yeah.
for their small little mom and pop shop,
Yeah.
for about $25, and it's like, yeah, you're a little overzealous there. But basically, that's something that, like Greg mentioned earlier, when after we write up our panels and we kind of give some ideas, if there's anything that we really have a clear picture in our mind, like there's this particular splash page in this newest comic that like we both saw like how it should lay out, and it's like it's got like 3 layers of depth to it, and so we literally in Canva just threw together, they're little squares and little stick figure like people, but just enough that our artist will know like
Yeah.
what we're looking at,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just saying, could you kind of do this with
Yeah.
the, but no, more like this. Like, yeah, we definitely try our best to physically portray what it is that we're asking if it's complicated enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's really good. Like I hate the term idea guy, but at the same time, I consider myself one. But because of that, I learned, I learned aspects of game design, I learned aspects of art, learned aspects of composing and music, simply so that my ideas aren't just ideas. I can actually give input, can actually help to design and build. So, uh, you know, Greg, as far as your part, like, you have the ideas, you have the storytelling, you have the creative mind for it. Do you also do the art? Can you do some art? Can you, or are you just you
No.
Things left, yeah.
but you can see it, like you do have a vision of
Yeah,
what.
yeah. That's why like the original first issue, we had like 7 pages done. Nobody
Hmm.
will ever see that ever again. Like it went into a fire. It's gone. There, like the guy is good at drawing, just not comics. Like,
Yeah.
um, he's like more of a skateboard like art type of
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
That's what he does. He does like skateboard art, and like stickers and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. But like, I get after like he drew the 7 pages, I was like, yeah, this is this. And Dylan's like, where is that in the script? And then like he looked at the script and he's like, whoa, no, that this is like a storyboard. And I was like, oh, yeah, we should probably fix that. So when we fixed it, basically in like not like how it is now, it was sort of fixed. And then the artist that the first actual issue that we released of the Seer Chronicles,
Hmm.
um, it was a little better. The art was way better,
Yeah.
and it's just little things that big things that he missed, like pages were left out of the script just because of the language barrier and all
Oh,
that.
wow.
So one of the main things on my like artist want list was you need to speak English, just
Yeah.
because I need to like let you know things, because our thing runs like super deep with like the video game and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And just to jump onto the video game, because I think it's awesome, is we don't only promote like our story in it.
Hmm.
We have like layers deep of like even indie music The comics that are
Nice.
on the comics on our platform, they're going to be like posters they can have in like your apartment or whatever, like the
Mm-hmm.
cover of the whatever. Um, Even indie film will be in the movie theater that you'll be able to watch. That's the only hard thing to get is
Yeah.
people to animate. And indie art is displayed in like the art gallery.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's awesome. I think that, you know, a lot of companies should actually start to implement that more. I think that's a really cool and unique way to put content and show your value in a different way, right? So going we've been at an hour, but we can go over a little bit of the matter. You mentioned Gary Vee, and as far as the marketing strategies that he has, are y'all implementing the 15, 20 pieces of content daily on every platform? Are y'all adhering to that, or yeah?
Definitely not
Uh,
15 to 20, but one of the things that when we first started this, because I followed Gary for years now, and when we first started, I basically I'm lazy. I'll admit it. I'm a very lazy person, but I'm very good at knowing what works, and if I get someone else to do it, it usually works. And so when I lived in upstate New York, Greg used to literally come over basically every day. And
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I'd say is, "Did you post on Instagram?" Right? And so, and I basically got it to the point where now we post basically every day. I don't know if he's really missed a day in a while, or if he
Yeah.
does, it's like that's the anomaly is when he misses a day. But essentially, that we've gotten to the point where we at least have something up every day that's new. So it might not be 15 posts a day,
Yeah.
but at least it's one post a day. And he posts stories, relatively frequently. He's always sharing people's content,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's definitely a huge deal.
And you're getting more content as you go along as well. Like for instance, this video y'all can come back and pull from and use whenever you want to, or your podcast you can come back and pull. You have these content archived in some way, at least on Facebook or other platforms, so you can always pull back from it and say, hey, this is where we were at when we started, when we had skateboard graphics. It's like you mentioned not showing the world that one, but at the same time, you started somewhere, and you should be able to be proud of where you come from, even if the first try wasn't that great. um,
Yeah,
well,
I would say too, like that was definitely something like with the details you were asking earlier. I would say that Greg's really good at looking at a panel and seeing the 8,000 things in his head that panel reflects, but not necessarily portraying it in the panel. But like even earlier today, we were talking about why somebody's doing something, and he's like, "Yeah, because there's all this." Like we haven't mentioned any of that yet. Like that's kind of important. Let's at least mention this.
build it up just a little bit so that everything doesn't just happen at once and not
yeah,
explain it.
it took us like 2 hours to come up with this one sentence in order for us to move forward in the script.
Oh man. Well, guys, I really appreciate y'all coming on and talking with me. Once again, kind of give a shout out to yourselves, what y'all do, and why people out there should support you and why they should value you.
I was gonna have me go. Okay, so yeah, so again, we basically started off with a idea from a big ass book Greg decided to write one day when he was bored watching Everybody Loves Raymond, to now having an entire universe of comics and solo series and all of that we want to spread out to our fans. We want to entertain them and bring them along a journey and make them part of it along the way. And one of the other big things we've done too is we're trying to give back to the indie community that helped guide us when we first stepped into it. So even our platform itself, although it's currently under construction, we also showcase it's like something like 40 other creators on our platform with probably 100
Mm-hmm.
plus comics on there. So we're not just trying to share our artwork. We realize there's a lot of other indie artists out there that are trying really hard. We know that it was very difficult. We struggled a lot in the beginning, and we feel like we only got as far as we did because of a lot of people before us. So we're trying to share that with a lot of big creators now.
Yeah.
So for the fans, we want to make as in like an all-encompassing universe as we can, so that they can be fully lost in a world that we've created or Greg's created in his crazy mind. And for all the other indie artists out there and indie creators of various types, we want to make sure there's a place that they can share their voice as well.
Amen. I that resonates with me a lot. That's so I respect you guys, and once again, thanks for coming on. Greg, you have anything else to say? You want to say anything to some fans or anything?
Not really.
Go support them on Kickstarter. They're still doing the campaign. You'll have what, 20 more days, 15 more
it's like
days?
16.
Yeah. Well, congrats again, guys, are getting funded, and hopefully talk to y'all soon.
Yep.
Y'all take
Thanks.
care.
You as well.
All right,